Okay, Hare Krishna.
Hare
Welcome,
Krishna.
everybody. Jai Shila Prabhupada. And we have a special session today with our dear Sangita Devidasi, and it's a Q&A session. So just please be prepared. And just I will do some announcement just before we start officially the Q&A. And as always, please remember to follow us on Facebook, on Instagram. That's very important. And just to there we put all the updates that we are having, seminars, activities, and so it's very important to give us this support and be informed. And then also, if you want to have Sangita Mataji book, The Final Journey, you can find on our website, vaishnavascare.org. And then happily we have this in Spanish, and soon we're going to have this in Russian. So this is very important. It's a guideline for all devotees and even non-devotees, just to know how to live this body with a real God consciousness. Our Krishna consciousness. So thank you everybody for being here, and Sangita Mataji, thank you so much for being with us. You want to say something before we start with the Q and
Well,
A session?
I am not sure what we want to talk about today. Does anybody have a question they want to start with? Do we have any discussion?
Okay,
I
then
have a
we can
real,
put the okay. Yeah, yeah, Mataji.
real, this is a real quick one.
Sure.
I was going to sign up to volunteer at the local hospice. And one of the questions on the form is, are you affiliated with any religion? And I'm not sure what they're asking for. And it's a simple yes, no question.
Mm-hmm.
You have any idea?
What to say? Um,
I mean, it's just yes, no. That's it.
oh, well, you can say yes. You know, they're not
I was
asking you
wondering,
what,
maybe they
right?
mean like, are you a priest or, a
Yeah,
rabbi?
no. No, I don't think they're asking that. They just want to know if you're spiritually minded. I don't think they're allowed to ask you what religion, but they may just, are they interviewing you?
I haven't filled out the paperwork yet.
Yeah. Um, they probably will interview you and in, one on one, and it may come up. And you can tell them whatever you're comfortable with. Whatever you're comfortable with. If you're where are you located?
In Statesville, North Carolina. I'm about
Okay.
2 hours from the temple in Hillsborough.
Oh, okay. I lived in Hillsborough for a couple of years. It's I paid the local hospice in Hillsborough to do a 3-day training with our local Vaishnavas care team that we had there. And they trained us in grief counseling, not counseling per se. We didn't leave after 3 days and become counselors, but obviously, but they taught us a lot. A lot, and they were very favorable, knowing we were the Hare Krishna temple people coming, and we got along really well. So from my experience in Hillsborough, the local hospice counselors and staff were extremely kind to us. So I don't know if that's any kind of help to you. If when you talk to them, I would put yes on the form, and if it comes up in the interview, say whatever you're comfortable with. If you want to say the religion you grew up in, say that. You want to say Vaishnavism, and then what I say is it's I say Hinduism stems from Vaishnavism because most people think it's the other way around. So I say what it is, and then they're like, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more. And then you wind up preaching a little bit, but you're not really there to preach to them, you know. And so I kept it at a minimum. And they were aware of the Hillsborough Temple because it's a very small town, and you know, it worked out wonderfully. They did a lot for us. It's such a nice little town that the EMTs, the county EMTs, actually trained our Vaishnava's care team for free in CPR, first aid, how to use an AED machine, zapper, and we collected money to buy one of those for the temple room. Everyone there, the county officials, the people who work at the county, they were all so helpful and nice, knowing we were the Hare Krishna movement,
Well,
devotees. So
like I
it's up
said,
to you.
yeah, I live
Yeah.
I live a long way from Hillsborough, and
Ah,
but I've worked for county government here, and everybody knows me, and they all know that I'm a Vaishnava, and
okay.
they refer to me as the Hare Krishna. I'm their token Hare Krishna,
Wonderful. Then just
and
say that then. Yeah, then say
so
that.
I'm on the board of health here in the county. Um,
Wow.
so I mean, everybody knows me, and they know of me as a devotee. So
Great.
um, I just don't want the people at the hospice to think I'm there to proselytize.
Well,
And I think if they do call me in for an interview, I can make that clear.
yeah,
You know.
that's what I was just going to say. Make it really clear when you're talking one on one. That's not what we're here for. Whatever anyone's spiritual belief is, I'll guide them toward that if that's what they need and that's what they want. That's all.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I hope it works out for you. That
Okay.
sounds great. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Karuna Purna Shakti
Jai
Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
And well, somebody else would like to ask something to our dear Sangita Mataji. You can raise your hand or even unmute yourself.
Even if you just want to share some experiences that you've had caring for someone, that's fine too. That's really fine. We learn from one another.
If nobody has anything, I'll chime in again.
Sure.
A friend of mine, she does volunteer at the hospice, and she just stays at the front desk basically when signing people in and out. And she was asked to take a little more active role, and she started after her son had passed away,
Oh,
and it's been 7, 8 years now, and she thinks that she could handle a more active role, but she's one of her worries is that um, becoming attached to the patient, and then how she will deal with their actual passing. And so I was just wondering, you've been doing this for 30 years. How do you handle, do
um,
you ever grieve for the patient that you were taking care of? Or how do you separate yourself, keep that professional distance?
yeah. It's very important to do that, or you'll lose a little part of yourself with every patient you care for. It's extremely important to keep your professional boundaries, even as a volunteer. Excuse me, I have a cold. Um, it's really you have one. It's going around. We have to be extremely cautious because, like I said, it can drain you a little bit at a time. Um, I figured that out when I was a new hospice nurse because it wasn't fair to my family. My children were young at the time. I didn't want it to come between me and my husband. I didn't think it was fair to him. I was so excited about taking care of hospice patients, and it was inpatient out west. And I would come home at night because, of course, they gave me the 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. shift, and the one nobody wanted. And I was a new nurse, so I got it. And actually, I loved that shift because I got to put everybody to sleep at night. It was like so nice and sweet for me. But um, then I would come home and my kids were asleep, my husband was asleep. I never got to see my family, you know. So I had to figure out a way to just leave my patients at the front door of my home. I couldn't take them home with me. It was it was agony for me. And I didn't want it to hurt my family in any way because I got very attached to my patients. So, as a new nurse, I had to learn how to draw those boundaries, you know, and really make a conscious effort every evening when I got home to leave my patients in the inpatient unit and not bring them home with me because it was not fair to me, to my family, and to the patients. I needed to be um, fresh in the morning or by 3 the next day so that I would be able to help them, to be there for them, to be strong for them. And if I had taken them home with me and thought about them and thought about them and, you know, meditated on them and what can I do for them tomorrow and, you know, like that, I wouldn't have been any good to them the next day. I would have been exhausted exhausted. So it was good for me to draw that boundary, to build up that wall so that the next day I'd be, you know, refreshed for them. And that's what we really need to do. Is does that answer the
Yeah,
question? Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's really the only fair thing to do for mostly for yourself and then also for your family and also for your patients.
Thank you, Mataji.
You're welcome.
Can I add to that?
Sure.
It's Kavita Haribo. Um,
Haribo.
I used to be, I mean, now I'm a mental health therapist, but I did for many years work as a social worker
Uh-huh.
in long-term care. So basically, and it was for sort of younger adults, and everybody who came in eventually died. So we did a lot of end of life care, a lot of bedside. I mean, I'm not a nurse, I'm a social worker, so I worked with families and with the individuals. And I think that you do have to have very good boundaries, absolutely. And I think also at the same time, we need to acknowledge that we do have compassion and we do develop a connection with people as we work with them, whether it's professionally or as a volunteer. And so it's natural sometimes that we will feel that pain of separation. So for your friend, it's important for her to be aware that her own grief for her son may get triggered, right? I think that's kind of what you're talking about, that her son died and that there is a possibility of that and that she has some tools and strategies and support available so that she can actually, process that grief if it comes up so it doesn't completely interfere with her capacity to support people, because I think there's a huge value in kind of that lived experience of losing somebody, and having that kind of volunteer support is really, really important, especially when we have such a shortage of healthcare professionals. So I think it's okay to feel something. You're going to feel something, and at the same time, as Mataji said, have good boundaries, that you but and also a lot of facilities and places offer support to volunteers and to employees to help them to manage. So if we had a very difficult death, there was like a process in place or somebody that we could talk to, we could do it even informally, that we could have a place to express our feelings. And it is sad, like, and we will have attachment to people because that's just part of the human experience, especially in such an intense time in a person's life, the end of their life.
Yeah. It's difficult not to form some kind of
Yeah.
some kind of attachment. I mean, there was a couple um who got they were a gay couple, male gay couple, and this was back in the days when, like the early 90s, and it was, there was no marriage, there was no legal marriage for them. There was, and one that was dying of AIDS, the other one was HIV positive, so we know, what he was headed for. It was, the whole thing was just a very sad situation. There was no HIV cocktail in the medication world. It just was just an awful situation, and they really wanted to be married. So we actually had a wedding for them within the hospice unit where they were staying. And all the patients came, the families of the patients came. It was a beautiful ceremony. And, how could you not get attached to
Hmm.
these patients? I mean, it was such a beautiful relationship that I formed with them. And he asked me, the one who was terminally ill and an inpatient, he asked me if I would come and speak at his funeral because he actually planned his funeral. And I did, and I felt very honored to do that. But when I say that you need to draw boundaries during the care, you know,
Hmm.
no doubt you have to draw the boundaries. But at the same time, of course, there's going to be an attachment.
Yeah,
We are only human, like you said, and it's going to be there. But we have to make some conscious choices and decisions about how to handle those attachments.
that's exactly right. That
Yeah.
you have to have some self-awareness, right? You have
Yes.
to have some self-awareness of how those experiences are impacting you personally and in your interpersonal relationships as well, and to be aware of that and have a place to process your feelings. And boundaries are key, especially if you're going to do any of this kind of work long term. You have
Hmm.
to you have to be able to, um, as you said, Matt, that you like leave it at the door. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that you don't feel for those people, but that, and I used to always think, okay, I leave it in Krishna's hands, right? That
Mhm.
this isn't me doing anything here. This is Krishna giving me some energy to support these people.
Right, right. And you brought up a good point. Like, if we're going to do this service long term, we have to come to some kind of realistic um, terms. How are we going to handle this? How are
Yeah,
we going to deal with this on a practical level?
that's right.
Yeah. It is quite a dilemma. It is, because we love our patients, we love their families, we love the people we work with at the hospice unit, and then, we do have to draw the line in the sand. We have to. So it does become a dilemma, but we have to become very protective of ourselves and of our family, and figure out how to work it in our life so we can do this service. We can volunteer. We can even make it part of our career if we're professional and we have a license to do this, either with social work, counseling, nurse, doctor, whatever you are. How can we do this so that we can do this long term? It's not easy. And to be honest, hospice and palliative care, especially hospice, is a very burnout field.
Mm,
There are hospice nurses, hospice social workers, hospice professionals. They they burn out quicker. I can't say quicker, I haven't read any latest statistics, but they do burn out quite often, because when you go to school, when you're educated in the medical field, we're educated to make everyone we take care of get better. And then we get into a field like hospice, and everybody we take care of dies.
yeah.
That's the reality of hospice. So we have to we have to come to terms with that one and say, you know this is it, and this is what this field is about. But it's also about making my patients comfortable, feeling loved, feeling accepted, feeling, some people, I had a man who had cancer of the face. He
Mm.
never left his apartment ever.
Oh,
The only person he ever saw was the housekeeper who came in to clean his place and cook for him. So the social worker at our hospice felt it would be good for him if he came in for 10 days to the hospice unit and socialized with the other patients and families. Well, guess what happened? They brought him in and he stayed in his room 24/7
yeah.
because he was mortified. He
Oh,
was so embarrassed. I mean, the cancer was eating away the bone and muscle and everything in on his face all over. His
oh,
nose was coming off, his cheeks, his lips, everything was falling off, literally. So he was totally mortified and he never left his room. So he would have been better off at home. It was a lot of stress for him. So, we can think we can say what we think would be best for our patient, but in the end, we don't know. They can tell us what's best for them, and we need to listen.
mm-hmm.
We need to listen. Go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you 100%
Yes.
we always used to say when I was studying, it's like start where the person is at, right? You start where your client is at. You listen to what they have to say.
Yes. We
Um,
have we have to hear them. We have to hear them. And with this gentleman, I felt so bad for him. I couldn't believe they pushed him to come in for 10 days and be inpatient. I knew he wasn't going to socialize with anyone. They just
mhm.
changed his physical environment wasn't going to make him feel better about himself.
That's
You
so
know,
sad. That's so
it, it,
sad.
it was. And that's what you would call, I use this in my seminars as an example of a social need. He had, there's a physical need,
Hmm.
an emotional need, so many needs. This was actually a social need. He needed to socialize, but he wasn't going to.
He didn't feel safe enough.
Right. He didn't feel safe enough. Good way to put it. Thank you. Yeah. So, we can't push somebody to go beyond what they drew as their boundary. We're thinking about our boundaries
Hmm.
and they've got their boundaries. Every patient has their boundaries, especially in a situation where he had face cancer. Imagine, imagine how mortified he was. So
Hmm.
we can't tell him, okay, now push that, line in the sand. We're going to take you to the inpatient unit and you're going to have lots of fun. It didn't happen. So, we need to listen to our patients.
Absolutely.
We're their advocate. We're the patient advocate, even more than the family. Then comes the family. But our first priority is the patient.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Because patients can tell us things that they won't tell their family,
Oh, yeah. You're right.
right? Right?
Yeah.
They will tell us things, they will tell us honestly because we are there to be impartial and objective. And even
Yeah.
as a volunteer, back to the other methods, volunteering in hospice, I mean, again, that's somebody neutral. It's somebody oftentimes people will want to protect their families from their own internal distress, right? That they don't want to tell their kids that they're scared or that they're sad or that they're suffering. They won't share it openly. And
Right.
sometimes they'll do that with the nurse, with the social worker, with the volunteer. And just to have that quiet presence there. I spent hours sitting at the bedside with people as they were dying when there was no family there, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
I was lucky enough to be in a job where I had a really good manager. She was a nurse. She was an excellent manager, and she gave me kind of free reign that I could actually spend my time doing that. Some of my time, not all of it, but
Right. Wonderful. Yeah. I mean, we can learn a lot from dying patients.
mhm,
They have so much to teach us, but a lot of them don't know it. They don't know it, but they really have a lot of realizations on the deathbed, and they can teach us a lot. Even the non-devotee patients
mhm,
can teach us a lot. I've learned so much over the years from my patients, and I feel really honored and blessed that I met them. And Karuna, you're going to love volunteering at the hospice. You're going to love it. um, you will love your patients. Not everybody. I mean, it's not fairyland where every patient is going to be the nicest person you ever met on this planet Earth. It's not like that. Sometimes you get somebody who's very obnoxious, okay? Even though he or she is dying, they may not be the most pleasant person in the world. And that's okay. That's okay. They might be in that angry stage, and they're taking it out on whoever walks in the room next. And it might be you. Lucky you. It could be you walking in the room next when they're, you know, really angry at their situation. And that's what we have to remember. They're not angry at us. They're not angry at us. They're just angry that they're dying. They're
mhm.
angry that they have no control over this situation. And that's why they're upset. They just take it out on whoever walks in the room next, right? So we have to forgive them, and we have to think, what would I be like laying in that bed? Especially not knowing about Krishna. We have so much to be thankful for that Srila Prabhupada has taught us. So much. We're so blessed to have this Krishna consciousness knowledge. So completely blessed. So, you know, but and I've taken care of so many devotees, and only one was so angry. But his mother told me he was always angry. She said he was always angry. Even as a little boy, he was angry, you know. So I didn't take it seriously. It wasn't me. He wasn't yelling at me per se. He was, but it wasn't me. He was dying, and he didn't want to die, you know. Two devotee doctors from India one time said to me, "Isn't it true that any devotee who's told that he's going to die would immediately accept it?" Right. Karuna Purna Shakti's shaking her head no. Of course not. Of course not. I've taken care of gurus, sannyasis. Not everybody immediately accepts. I'm dying. Hooray. Hari Bol. Jai. It doesn't work like that. You have to process that you're going to leave this body, because the soul enters a body and you become that body. You're that body. Even though we know we're not, intellectually we know we're not, but we take on that body, and we this becomes home. Here we are in this woman's body, this man's body, you know and even the dog and the cat and the squirrel outside and the birds, They're thinking that's who they are. This is me, you know. So I feed them every day. I take prasadam out back in my house and feed them, and they're they fight each other for a cracker. It's amazing to me how they really believe that's them. But here we are in a human form. We're so fortunate. We have the intelligence to understand more. But when we're told that we're dying, we don't immediately say, Haribo, yay. It's not like that. We have to process the news, okay? And um, we have to learn to accept the fact that we're going to be leaving this body, and those that are um, extensions of this body, known as our children, and extensions of the extensions, known as grandchildren, right? And our partner in life, known as our husband or wife. Okay, we have so many attachments. And then all of a sudden, oh, sorry, you got to leave. You have to leave that body, and you have to leave everything attached to this body: your home, your spouse, your children, your grandchildren, your friends, your relatives, everything you own, all your gold, everything, everything just goes. And you have to process that. So that's what we do in Vaishnava's care. We become friends with the dying devotees in our community. And hopefully, we've made friends with them years before they're dying. So we're not intruding on a very sensitive time in their life when they're dying. Hopefully, we've sat with them at the feast, we've talked with them, we've become friends with them. We know about their children. We know how old they are. We know what college they're in. We know them. We've seen these devotees for 30 years at the Sunday feast. Hopefully, we've talked with them. We've become friends with them. So when they find out they're dying, they're going to come to you because you've been their friend. You've been their friend. And they'll come to you and they'll confide in you. And they'll tell you, I was just diagnosed with whatever, cancer, heart disease, end stage kidney disease, whatever it is. And they'll come to you for support. And you'll be trained on how to do it. And they'll appreciate it. And Krishna and Srila Prabhupada and your guru will appreciate that you're giving a dying devotee love and support. Makes sense?
Yeah.
You have another question?
Thank you so much, Mataji. Sangita, we have Shamalota. She wants to ask something.
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Hari
Well,
Bob. Hari
Hare
Bob.
Krishna, Sanjita. Thank you so much. Before I talk a little bit about this Mataji that passed away maybe a couple months ago here in Utalaba, you mentioned how fortunate we are that we have this, at least intellectually, the information that Srila Prabhupada has given us. When I was a teenager, my maternal grandfather passed away, and one of my cousins, also a teenager, told me later on, he said, he was having hallucinations just before he passed away. And he said that he was in the room. And I say, what kind of hallucinations did he have? He said, he was yelling and saying, don't put me those ropes. Take away those ropes from me. What are you doing? Now you are bringing chains. What are you doing to me? And I didn't know what to think about that until I became a devotee. And I thought, oh my God, he saw, he saw how he was going to be leaving the body in chains and with ropes attached to his body. And for me, that was very, very significant when I encountered Krishna consciousness.
Yeah.
And here, a couple months ago, maybe a little more, we have this Mataji, Prabhupada disciple. She also had skin cancer, and it was in her nose. She used to come for the feast, sometimes big festivals, and then she completely stopped coming. And when somebody will go and deliver prasadam or flowers, she won't open the door. She will say, I'm sorry, I don't want you to see me like I am now. Just leave it in the porch. And the devotees will say, don't worry, it's fine. I know you have a problem in your face. And she will say, no, 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 no. I don't want nobody to see me. So when she went to the hospice and we went to visit her, the nurses told us we covered her face because it was very, very bad. And they told us, so you have to be aware. She's completely covered with gauze and everything, and we couldn't see her. But the nurse explained to us that it was very, very bad. Um, she was taking, one day she went outside, she wanted to take some sun, and apparently an insect went in her nose, and the larva was growing there. It was eating her skin, and it was a very terrible, painful situation. And somebody told me that after she was diagnosed, she was using something, I don't know the name, something black cream, that it was a fad for a while. Everybody was saying, oh, it's incredible. Everybody should use something called black, a kind of cream. And that made her worse. So we have to be very careful, you know. Sometimes people with good intentions tell us what to do, what to take and not to take. And unfortunately, it doesn't work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who told her to take this black cream? The
Um,
the
some some
nurse?
some of her friends, some got
Oh,
sisters, some got sisters.
okay. That's just really a horrible situation. I'm so sorry. Did she leave her body?
Yes, she was in the hospice for less than a week, and
Oh
she
God.
went still conscious, and she just wanted to go. She told them, "Don't give me nothing. I don't want medicine. I don't want food. I don't want water. I don't want nothing. Just let it be." And so when we
It-
went to visit her, we took some maha garlands. We took that little device from India where you hear Srila Prabhupada chanting, and the nurses helped us to put that by her bed so she can hear Prabhupada. But it was sad because um, she was practically alone. She was by herself there. Only a granddaughter came to see her. The children's all over the planet. It was a sad situation.
she wasn't married.
No,
No. Oh, that's terrible. Do you know how old she was?
um, probably late 70s. She
Late
was from
70s.
England, a disciple of Srila Prabhupada.
She was Prabhupada's disciple.
Yes, yes, from England, from I think from London.
Oh, from London. Yeah. Wow. It's a sad story. Thank you, though, for sharing it.
Mm.
But, you can, it's like that man I had who had cancer of the face. It was such a sad situation. And just putting him in the hospice was not the answer. It just, he didn't want anybody to see him either. you know, just like she didn't. It's a shame. It's, there's over 200 types of cancer. And depending on which kind you have, sometimes you just don't want to see anybody. And it becomes a very lonely death, very lonely. So, yeah, it becomes very difficult for us as volunteers for Vaishnava's care to help devotees like this because they push us away. So we have to try to become very creative and think of some ways we can help them without them feeling embarrassed. Okay, so I think we're out of time. Yes.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you everybody to the amazing questions. Great to learn from each other, as Sangita Mataji was telling us. So, dear Sangita Mataji, thank you so much for your presence and your advices as always. And soon we are going to have a workshop. We are going to have some user that Itaravali is going to reinforce about that. So yes, we will meet next Sunday. So have a beautiful festival, Nityananda Trayodasi, tomorrow.
Yes.
And
Um,
dear Sangita Mataji, the last words you want to say before
Yeah,
we
the
go?
the the webinar we're going to be doing every 3 months this year, quarterly. So every 3 months we'll be doing a webinar. Like this one will be. I'm so sorry, my throat is. I'm getting laryngitis. Um, this one is 90 minutes. It'll be 90 minutes, and it's about grief. What not to say, what to say, to a devotee who's grieving or to anyone who's grieving, anyone, not just devotees. And we'll talk about the difference between bereavement, grieving, and mourning. There's a lot that's going to be covered on this webinar. So it's the basics of grief counseling and what you can do for those who are grieving in your community. Okay, even people who you work with, or your neighbors, or your relatives, it'll help you in general to console those who are grieving a death. Okay, so
Thank you.
March 1st, I think it's 10 in the morning. Yeah,
Well, your time, I think, but we're going to post everything, and Terari will reinforce that information. You have to register on the link. Just you will see the specific hour for your
for
place,
your,
so
yeah,
your
there's,
country.
there's a time, yeah, so you can
Yeah,
check the
because we have
time.
somebody from South Africa here, so should be, of course, in another time. So, but we will send the information uh, soon.
Yeah,
So I will stop the recording. Thank you, everybody, and
thank
Jai
you
Shri
Thank
so
you.
Prabhupada, Jai
much.
Sangita